You've just joined the Prepper Broadcasting Network, where we promote self-reliance and independence. The views and opinions expressed are strictly those of the host or their guests. Visit us in the interactive chat room at prepperbroadcasting.com.
Bankland, Federation of Bankland, the Republic of Bankland, United States of Bankland, United Kingdom of Bankland. Parasite, a smart parasite, a real smart parasite, keeps its host alive. Times are bad and times are hard, and minus cash my way is barred, and treated like some retard strapped to a suicide credit card. Mr. Banker, can't you see?
Welcome, Golf Strikers. This is our weekly libertarian talk show where we discuss not only the problems of today but also solutions. If you have any questions or comments during tonight's broadcast, the call-in number to get on the air is 1-347-202-0228. After you've connected, remember to press 1 so that our producer will see that you want to be on the air. If you're listening to this show over on Blog Talk or any other website that carries our player, you can also listen and join us in our chat room at prepperbroadcasting.com. So tonight we're actually going to have a 2-hour show. For the recording, it'll be broken into 2 separate shows. But for those of you listening live, we'll have 2 hours. For the first hour, we're going to be speaking with 2 guests about how they became authors, about how one of them became a self-made publisher, and how their success stories can inspire you to become successful in writing your own books or even starting your own business. For the second hour, we'll be talking about the recent police shootings, the Black Lives Matter movement, the violence, and what can be done about it. So let's get started. My first guest tonight is Melanie Davis. She's a self-made author and publisher and has a very interesting story to tell about how she got started in her own business. Welcome to the show, Melanie.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So, anyway, you started your own publishing company called Triumph Press. Could you tell us a little bit about that, and then just give us a short summary about that, and then basically start from the beginning on how you got into publishing and writing books?
Okay. Well, I guess it all started in my college years when I studied English and have always enjoyed writing. But as years went by and I became a mother, I turned my writing largely to journals. And I developed a tradition that whenever I would, when I was pregnant and I would find out if it was a girl or boy, I'd go and buy a journal, little girl or a little boy journal, and I'd start writing in it. And I'd take it with me to the hospital and have the little footprints put in it and write a mother's first message to her child. I did this with my first 3 children, and my third child is a daughter. Her name was Bryn, and she passed away at 7 months old of SIDS. And what I did was, some months after her passing, I picked up my journal that I'd been keeping of her, and I wrote what happened, what it was like finding her in her crib, the ambulance ride, praying that she would make it, but knowing she was already gone, and all the challenges that we had following her death. We lived in San Jose, California at the time, and we buried her in Carson City, Nevada. And we had a little tiny white casket in the back of our van with her body, and we were driving. And we broke down in the Sierra Nevada mountains, and so I remember standing in the rest stop watching the tow truck pulling my van with my baby's little casket inside and driving away. There was a lot of challenges around that time that I was able to write down. Then a long time, not too long, but sometime after that, I picked up my journal again. And this time I wrote what I learned. And that is that I know God lives. I know that he helps us and supports us in our challenges. Because if you'd asked me before my daughter passed away how I would react to losing a child, I would have said, throw me in a dark room and lock me up, throw away the key. I would have not thought I could get through that. But on the day of her death, and even during her funeral, heaven was so close, and it was actually a sweet experience. If you were to see the pictures from her funeral, you wouldn't find one of me crying. I would even go back to those days if I didn't have to live the ones following. But I wrote what I learned, and I wrote my wisdom because I wanted my children and my posterity to know that whatever challenges or difficulties come in life, that they can get through them. That's who my audience was. Well, after some time, I discovered a new technology that everyone has seen now, but at the time it was brand new, and that's what I call storybooking, and that's where you're able to digitally publish a scrapbook that has your pictures and your stories. And I was pretty excited to find this technology because I was able to put my journal into it, along with all the pictures of my daughter from her life and up through the funeral. Now, when you go through something hard and people hear about it and know that you've gotten through it and done fairly well, they'll come to you and ask when they have someone that they're concerned about that may be going through something similar. And they'll ask you, how did you get through it? Or what can I say to my sister or brother or friend or coworker that just lost a child? And all I could do was publish or print another copy of this book. And I'd give it to them, and I'd say, maybe there's something in my story that can help them. And I probably handed out about 100 copies of that little colorful printed storybook. It's a hardback book. And as I did this, I felt great healing every time that I could use my story to help someone else. And I got a lot of wonderful feedback from people who either gave or received that book. And so I ended up working for this company that was called Heritage Makers, and they are the first company to come up with this technology. And so it was actually one of those, and it still is actually. I'm no longer in it because I moved on to start my own publishing company, but it's called Heritage Makers. And so I became one of their first consultants, and within, I think it wasn't much more than a year, I moved up to become one of their founding executives in the company. I had about 800 consultants underneath me. It's one of the MLM tech companies. And just to try to shorten this a little bit, I discovered that process of writing and sharing my story was so healing. I developed another kind of process that I called Storybooks for Healing and wrote a program that I later renamed the Triumph Program, that helps people to go through the process. It guides them to write their stories and find the purpose in what they went through and the ways that they can use that to help others, and then publish books at the end of it. In the process of working on this program, I worked with a lot of hospices, and I ran bereavement groups that utilized the program. And I had some phenomenal results, but I had a lot of bereavement counselors get mad at me because I would tell people that you can overcome grief. And they would get mad at me and say, we don't say that. We're not sure it's true. We say that you can find new normal is what they call it, or in time it will get better. And they have all these catchphrases that really set the bar low for people, that they'll ever be happy again. And, of course, overcoming grief is how you define it. And I define it as finding purpose and joy in life and being able to continue to live with a smile on your face and hope. So that's when I wrote my first book, which is called The Triumph Book. And it's a collection of stories from people who've endured severe tragedies that found purpose and joy in life because of what they went through. And it's all different types of tragedies, not just death loss. There's stories of dealing with MS, a man whose wife was killed in a car accident on their honeymoon, a story from the tsunami, many different types of stories, and a lot of them actually were so intense that they made the news when they first happened. But my book was able to show what happened afterwards. How did they get through these challenges? And I wanted to maintain creative control of my book. I wanted to control what the cover looked like because it's significant. It's a silhouette of someone standing like they're on a winner's platform and they're holding a book above their head representing their story and they're saying this is the greatest gift that I have to share with the world. And I wanted to maintain the integrity of the stories because they're all first person. Sometimes I help people write them, but they're all first person, which is the best way for history to be recorded. So what I did is I started my own publishing company called Triumph Press. And then after publishing that book, I actually went on to write another in what became the Triumph Book series, and that's called the Triumph Book Heroes, which is a collection of 27 first-person stories from our veterans, spanning the decades of war from World War II up through our recent conflicts, all different ranks and wars. And it was actually in the course of writing that book that I met the next guest that you'll have on the show. I was able to tell the story of his brother, Mark Forrester, who was killed in combat, and some other important stories and some very historically important stories that had never been told before I interviewed the veterans. But in the course of writing the book, I found out I had been an ignorant civilian and had no idea the battles that our veterans face when they come home from war. Anyway, I went on to create another version of the Triumph program that's meant to help them overcome PTSD, which is causing a suicide epidemic of at least 22 a day. There's actually 18 a day as I was writing that book, and it's only increased. After producing that book and another workbook, in addition to the Triumph program, I then went on to publish other authors. And there's quite a number of books in the Triumph Press library, one of them being Dad Forrester's book, My Brother in Arms. And that's all about his brother, Mark. I have a lot of military books in my collection. The genre of Triumph Press is true and inspiring stories that can make a difference in the world. And I also publish self-help. So I have quite a variety of books. I do have one that I think would interest the audience that's listening, written by Todd Jones, called Fully Prepped, a comprehensive guide to what you need to be prepared. And that's a really terrific book for anyone who's interested in preparation.
So what's the easiest way for them to find that book?
Just go to the website, effectivetactics.com, and you can get the book, and he sells it in bulk with great discounts so that they can share it with friends and neighbors and family. I'm going to post that in the chat room. So it's effectivetactics.com. Effectivetactics.com.
Okay.
Yeah, and they'll see on the home page. I actually have gone on to be a co-host with Todd Jones on his show called Effective Tactics. So they'll see. We have a kind of. It's a graphic that makes it look like we're on a big billboard in Dallas, Texas, which we're not actually, but you'll see me there on the billboard with him if you go there. So so I published a number of books. Quite a few of the books I've published have gone to number 1 on Amazon Kindle, including Dad Forrester's. Mine went to number 2, my Triumph Book Heroes, and that's because I could never knock The Art of War off number 1.
Oh, wow.
It's a pretty tough one to compete with. And so I feel very fortunate to have gone through a challenge, a tragedy that I did, because I do have faith in God, and I have faith that I will see my daughter again. And I know that her death was in his plan, and it had a purpose. And I feel the purpose was so that I could do what I'm doing, being a publisher and an author, and I'm also a ghostwriter. I've gone on to work with authors that need their help writing their books, and I'm about to publish 2 books next month that are pretty amazing. One of them deals with parental alienation. This is a father who had to fight his ex-wife in court to regain the rights to parent his son, and she did some pretty bad stuff to him and accused him of things like sexual assaults on their child and things he never did, caused him to lose his job. He finally won the rights, and she lost hers because the court saw through everything that she was doing, but she ran home immediately, shot their son, and then shot herself. And come to find out, the kinds of things he went through is not at all uncommon. And I think this is going to be an extremely important book in making changes in the family law and mental health systems, and hopefully CPS as well, to protect our children and our families when there's a custody battle. So, sorry, that's probably not as brief as you would have liked. But
no, I think it's a pretty heartwarming and compelling story of your life experiences. Sad to hear that you had to go through that, but it seems that you're providing a very much needed service to people with your publishing company and the types of books you publish to really help people out that really need that help. You certainly don't sound like a greedy, evil capitalist to me.
No, but you know what? I have no problem being successful, and it empowers me to do more good. It's interesting you say that, because I used to do a lot of my work kind of more on a service basis for free, and because I'm like, how can I charge people? But I just couldn't maintain that. It's just not possible. And making a business out of it allows me to do more good. So
I found that in the prepping movement with APN and and writing blog posts myself and things I've seen with some of my other friends that are authors that produce content, and I mean, a lot of times we get vilified by people like, this should be free, these videos should be free on YouTube, these books should be free.
It's so needed. You need to give it away.
And I'm thinking, authors got to eat too. Authors got to survive. Publishers need to survive. I think the free market and capitalism gets such a bad name so often. People think, oh, you're just doing that for money. Well, what my answer is, what do you do for work? What would you do your work for free too? I mean, some people have a gift for writing, and that's what they're called to do, to write or to publish books. And when you're providing a much needed service, there's nothing wrong in selling that, because that provides you with the money and the capital to move forward and continue to do what you do to help even more people. And I think it's an excellent service you're providing through your publishing company and helping these authors to get their stories out to people, and then which in turn helps the people that read those stories. And if you're just giving everything away for free, I don't think you can go nearly as far as you're able to do with the way you're doing it now. So I think this is really awesome. How can people reach your website? Is it triumphpress.com or something like that they can go to?
That is a good guess. Yep, triumphpress.com. And if there's anyone listening that's interested in writing a book or learning to be a better writer, I actually have a free ebook there that they can download called The 7 Rules of Exceptional Writing. And so they're welcome to go to my website and download that. And I think you'll learn a lot about how to be a strong writer. Writing well is really just a matter of being a good rewriter. And that's what this teaches you, is how to take what you're putting down and go through it and strengthen it, and where you can look for things that can make your writing more compelling and more interesting and lively. And so that's a gift.
So anyway,
that's something I do give free.
Well, we've got about 9 more minutes before we bring Thad on. We'll go to a break before we bring Thad on, but I want to go over a few things. First, if any of our callers that are listening in on the phone, or anyone that's listening on the player, if you'd like to call in and talk to Melanie, maybe ask a question or two, the number to call in is 1-347-202-0228, and don't forget to push 1 on your phone so that you can get connected with our producer. Anyway, you've got some words of wisdom that you provided for people to become successful. So let's go through the list of that, since obviously you've become successful in your publishing business. What can people do if they want to be an author, if they want to be a publisher, or maybe they just starting some other type of business? What are some of these steps? The first one you showed here was pursue your passion. Could you talk a little bit about that, how people can pursue their passion?
Yeah, that's the first tip. I think I sent you 7 or 8 tips, and that's number 1, and that probably goes without saying, but it definitely comes first, because whatever you choose to do, you can be wildly successful, but it's going to be work. And the only way you're going to work as hard and long as you might have to be as successful as you'd like, is if you're passionate about it. So that's just the first thing. When you're looking at starting a business, make sure it's something that you love.
Okay. Number 2 here is, there is no such thing as overnight success, but a good mentor will show you the shortcuts.
Yeah, that's right. Anytime you see, I've seen commercials on television of advertising someone trying to sell their program to become a millionaire in short order. There is no such thing as overnight success, but I know that having gone through the path of reaching success, there's a lot of places I made mistakes and spent a lot of time or a lot of money on things that if I had a mentor, they could have steered me clear of those rocks. And that's what I do. That's what I do for my authors. In addition to publishing with them, helping them publish their book, I become a coach for them. And so I can take what I've learned, and a lot of times learned the hard way, and help them not have to go through those same things. But I've also learned some ways that can really help, some great marketing opportunities or ways to promote a book that can be very successful. If I'd had someone like me helping me along, I think that I do believe I would have had more success a lot sooner. And at the very least, I would not have had some of the failures, or I guess there's no such thing as failure, but some of the life lessons could have been taught a lot easier. So I encourage people to seek out a mentor, someone who doesn't have to be exactly the same business they're in, but just who has been successful in business. Of course, if you're an author, you probably would want to seek out someone who's been a successful author. Just ask them what they recommend, what's their wisdom, what should or shouldn't be done.
Yeah, definitely help people to save a lot of time and hardship in their own business, to find other people that have been successful to help them, learn from their mistakes, basically. Number 3,
really.
Failure is a requirement for success.
Yes, absolutely believe that. And so that might seem like an opposition to what I just said in tip number 2, but you are going to fail when you're trying to succeed. It's inevitable, and it has to happen, because there's skills and there's opportunities that come from failure. My dad just finished reading Phil Knight's book. I think it's called, it's something catchy. The Shoebox or something. It just came out this year. Anyway, he's the founder of Nike. In his book, there's so many times that he was just about to go bankrupt and just about to fail, but some of the things that would happen to him, he would use his opportunities, and it was actually what catapulted him to success. Some of the different ways that he was being criticized, well, it turned him into a perfectionist, and instead of just having average factories, he's got factories that are internationally recognized as tremendous examples of working environments for his employees. And so definitely when negative things come along, they can help us to reach heights that we might not have without those failures.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get discouraged and, give up too easy because they fail the first or the second time, and you try to encourage them, and they say, oh, that's impossible, I failed, I'm not even going to try. But I think they said, like, the average business person fails, like, at least 3 times before they become successful. And that's the average. There's, some people probably succeed their first shot, and there's probably people that try 20 or 30 times before they get it right. That's what my grandpa used to tell me. He said, you'll fail at least 3 times before you succeed. And he's been right about that. I know I failed at least 3 or 4 times in business, finally getting some things right and finally getting to be successful myself. And a lot of work. It's taken a long time. It goes back to, number 2, there's no such thing as overnight success.
Yeah, there really isn't. And if someone's successful overnight, they haven't had enough failure to keep that success, in my opinion. They're going to make a mistake because you just learn and are stronger from those failures. So I forget who said it, but I know that one of the phrases I've often heard is double your rate of failure if you want to be successful. So
yeah,
that's one way to look at it.
Then number 4 is charge what you are worth.
Yes, that's very important, and that's another one that I've learned from experience. When you charge what you're worth, people treat you the way that you deserve to be treated. I've had different situations where I would charge very little. And what I found is that when I was trying to serve and help people but didn't charge enough, they only valued my service as much as I was charging. And there's a lot of times when those who paid the least worked me the hardest. And when I started to raise my rates in my publishing, people appreciated the work I did more. It was really interesting. And you know what? They were still able to pay it. And sometimes I help them. I might help them set up a GoFundMe account where they can, and when I say that I help them, I actually would help write their story for them or help them know how to put a video together to go with it. And I've helped authors raise the money they need to pay me. So I can still give them some assistance, but what I find is that when I charge what I'm worth, I'm treated more valuable. So that's really important.
I found that too, even like, for example, getting sponsorship ads on my website. If you've got some empty space, you're not charging enough. What is it? If you've got if you don't have any empty space, if all your ad spots are filled up,
you're not charging enough.
You're not charging enough. You should always have at least 1 or 2 empty spots on there. That means you're charging enough. It's kind of a supply and demand thing. Same thing with hearing about like musicians, at their concerts, charging outrageous ticket prices, and people complain about that, and I'm like, well, they're sold out, aren't they? And they're like, yeah, and I go, well, and if they're sold out, if they're completely sold out, they're not charging enough for those tickets, because what ends up happening is, if they're if they're too low on their prices, then you get ticket scalping and stuff. People ripping them off. And then charging double for those ticket prices. Even in the concerts, there should be at least a handful of seats that are empty if they're charging what they're worth. People go, well, that's price gouging. Oh, well, no, it's not. People are willing to pay that much. If they want to pay that much, then let it go to the. If it's too much, then don't go there.
There's definitely. We have a human nature about us, and we have a perception. And when someone charges a lot, we assume that means they're more professional. And so then we treat them more professionally. So if you charge too little in your business, you just don't come across as professional. So you come across as bargain basement, and therefore people value it at that level. So it's really important to figure out what your worth is and charge accordingly.
Well, we are coming up on a break here, and I want to get that in as soon as we can. But you do have, there's about 4 more points I want to go over real quick, and we'll go over those after the break, and then I'll bring Thad on. So let's go to our sponsors right now.
We have exciting news. You can now afford to have your own freeze dryer. That's right, for the first time ever, it's possible to have a freeze dryer in your home. It was invented right here in America by Harvest Right. With this new appliance, you can freeze-dry your own food, and it will last 25 years. Imagine freeze-drying fruit, vegetables, meat, and your own homemade meals. It's as easy to use as a microwave. Learn more about this amazing home freeze-dryer at harvestright.com. Again, that's harvestright.com.
Where can you find the best in food storage, water purification, heirloom seeds, medical, health, and emergency supplies? LifeReliance.com. What do Mountain House, Legacy Foods, Guardian, Wise Foods have in common? LifeReliance.com. Who has the lowest prices, special offers, and free consultation to help you develop an emergency preparedness plan that makes sense for your family? LifeReliance.com. Why would Life Reliance do all this? We are family, owned and operated. Let our family help you and your family be prepared. Visit us at LifeReliance.com or call 520-425-9771.
Hey, I'm Joe Alton, MD. I'm here to remind you that disasters can happen anytime, anywhere, and you need to know what to do in an emergency. The new 2016 third edition of the Survival Medicine Handbook is the essential guide for when medical help is not on the way. The Survival Medicine Handbook covers every issue you'll face in times of trouble, and it's all in plain English. Get the Survival Medicine Handbook at Amazon.com. I guarantee one day you'll be glad you did.
Welcome back, everyone. I have Melanie Davis on with me. She's a author and publisher. She owns Triumph Press. Website is triumphpress.com, and we're talking about how she became successful. Anyway, we're going to go on to the other 4 points that you made here before you bring on Thad. You mentioned you may have to charge less than you are worth to start out in order to prove your worth. So we're talking about charging what you're worth. Now, what about this about charging less than what you're worth when you start out?
I know that may seem in opposition to the first point. However, when you're just first starting out, it's okay to do some work that is for less and use that as an opportunity to do a terrific job so that you show what you're capable of. Until you do some work when you're first starting out, you may know that you're great, but you don't have any record to prove it. So you have to develop that track record. And you might even look at it as a kind of internship. But it's okay when you first start out to maybe do some work that is more of a gift to someone or something that's discounted as an opportunity to show what you can do. And then as you build your portfolio, then you can start charging more because you have a track record.
So basically, just to get your foot in the door. Okay, then number 6, always ask for testimonials from satisfied customers and use them on your website and elsewhere.
Yeah, that's key. I know that I really rely on the testimonials of others when I'm making a selection, whether it's a product I buy on Amazon or want to hire a plumber. If you've done a great job for your customer, then ask them for a testimonial, and they'll be happy to give it. I have a page on my website where I have testimonials from the clients that I've worked with, and I'm really proud of that. It means a lot to me to be able to do work that's good enough to build a page like that. And I think it can make a big difference in your business to have someone select you over your competitors, to have those testimonials where they can find them.
Number 7, find a way for your product and service to be tied to a cause and give away a preset portion of your profits, serves others, and gives you marketing platforms.
Yeah, that one right there I could probably spend 30 minutes talking about, but since time is short, that's something I do a lot with my authors. Usually they write about a topic that can be tied in with a cause, whether it's with veterans or disabilities. There's a lot of different ways that I've been able to network authors and their books with causes that their book may be able to help raise awareness for or raise money for. You can build a partnership with a nonprofit and say, hey, if you help market my book, I'll return 10-15% of the sales to you. You can write about the cause in your book if you're at that stage and help bring awareness to them, tell their story. And that's just some examples of how I've been able to do that in the type of business that I'm in. But really, cause marketing is some of the best marketing you can do, and usually it doesn't cost anything but what you're able to donate.
Okay.
And I'd love to go on, but I don't want to take up any more time. So if anybody wants to contact me about that, I can talk to them a little more via email or through my website.
Yeah, I want to get that on here too. So the last one was run your business and don't let it run you. All right, let's bring Thad on. I want to get him while we got the last 20 minutes or so. Thad, thank you for coming on.
Great to be here, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, sorry we went a little bit over the hour there. Anyway, so you're one of Melanie's authors. Can you give a little background about how you got started and what got you interested in becoming an author and how you connected with Melanie?
Well, in September of 2010, my little brother Mark was killed in action. And he was, my best friend, and we had lived together as adults. We were both, I didn't get married till I was older than the average Joe, and we had lived together when he was in college, and so we were pretty close, and I just knew immediately I wanted to write a book on his life. And one reason was just because we needed a record of our family needed a record of his life. And you can see how quickly that, family, new nieces and nephews born. Well, they don't know him. They never met him. We've got 5 or 6 new nieces and nephews in the family now that have been born since my brother was killed. So I wanted a record of his life, but also I thought that, the world needs to know about these great Americans who voluntarily serve to protect us. So I felt like it was a calling. It was a mission of mine to write the book. I didn't know how I was going to get it published, and I didn't care early on because there's a few things in my life where I've known that this is just what's going to happen. So I started working on the book, and I met Melanie, I don't know, maybe 9 months after, and we spoke, and she told me she'd love to help me out, and I never made any commitments, and I kept working on the book, and then started talking to her more, and then realized, and I looked at other options, but I realized this is really my best option, and this is going to work because I could get some one-on-one coaching from Melanie, and she also was passionate about getting Mark's example out there, and also she was going to give me basically full control, because I wanted say in how the cover looked and what it was called, and so she really kind of met all the needs that I had, and I've written one book, and that was my first book, and I'm not sure if I'll write another one, so I wasn't experienced in it. I just had a passion for the story that needed to get out there. So that's how we got introduced, and or how we, I guess, got together in a business sense, and why I chose her company, Triumph Press.
Mhm. So both of you basically got started and found your successes through your own personal hardships that you had to overcome, and you've used that to, and that's the same thing. When I last couple of weeks ago, I had a self-made publisher that came on, and he became successful by drawing from his hardships that he went through. And so I think that's something I think people really should, people that want to be an author or entrepreneur, that they can learn from both of your experiences, that they can draw on their own hardships in their past, to use that to become successful. Like Melanie said, drawing on past failures as well. So could you tell our listeners how people can get your book and find out more about you?
Well, there's several places. It's on Amazon. First of all, it's called My Brother in Arms. You can look up, I have a website, an author website called thadforester.com, and that's THADFORESTER. And then also we have a foundation in my brother's name. So if you go to markaforester.com, then you can find out all about him, and you can buy the book from there also. So lots of ways to find out about me or the book.
Mm-hmm. So, and a couple other things about you. You said you started a podcast called Patriot to the Core, and you've already done 4 episodes. Can you tell our listeners about that and how they can listen to your podcast and how that's working out for you?
Yeah. I'm new to this, and so I just feel like along this journey with writing the book and interviewing teammates of my brothers from multiple branches of the military, I just think I've met a lot of exceptional Americans who, many have been injured, whether it's physically or visibly, or even those that suffer the wounds that aren't visible, and also and then plenty others who are just freedom fighters that want to protect us. And so I felt like I've met so many, and they kind of inspire me. So I wanted to interview these types of people and share them with the world through podcasting. And it's not all military. I mean, it's I happen to have a great friend who he's self-employed, and he started a nonprofit where he's ready to deploy at any given moment to a natural disaster in the world. And he's gone all over the world many times, to Haiti, to Nepal, to Japan, multiple places. And he helps in disaster relief. He works with the Red Cross and the Salvation Army, and I guess more so the Salvation Army, and he tags rural orphanages is kind of his real specialty. But just people that are selfless and that are humanitarians, and also many of them have a military connection, but not all. So I've got 4 recorded and edited, and they're out there online, but I'm waiting till I get a few more, and then I'll have it published on iTunes and probably through the Google Play option also. But you can definitely listen to it if you go to patriottothecore.com, or even to my website, thadforester.com. You'll see a link up there for the podcast for Patriot to the Core. And so there's 4 episodes up there now, and Melanie will be one of the guests sometime coming up. And so it's a new project that I'm learning as we go as well.
That's amazing. So that's patriottothecore.com. So both of you in your businesses and organization, in your podcast, in your books, you're providing a valuable service to people. That's what I really like about the free market. That's what we talk a lot about on this podcast, about the free market, and the way to really be successful in that is to provide a needed service. And sounds like you're doing that also with your podcast, Patriot to the Core. Anyway, I'd like to, take some questions. If we have any callers that are listening in, and if they want to call in, the number to get on the show is, let's see here, trying to remember that myself. It's 1-347-202-0228 and press 1 if you're listening right now and want to ask any questions to Melanie or Thad. Just dial 1. Did get a question I wanted to ask from Dave in our chat room. Wanted to ask about some of the failures. So I'll ask Melanie first, and she was on first. What are some of the failures that you went through, Melanie, that you learned from?
Oh, wow. Which one?
Maybe there's one or two of the big ones that stand out, and then I'll ask Dad.
Okay, let me think. I think that sometimes I tend to go big. I go a little too big and a little too broad. When you're doing something you're passionate about, you may find a lot of different ways to go about that business, and you're so excited, you want to go down all those paths. And they're all good paths, but if you go too wide in your marketing or in the products that you're offering, you can spread yourself so thin that you fail to be successful because you need to be more focused. And I think that's probably one of my biggest weaknesses that I have to battle on a regular basis, because as I continue to work, I continue to find other ways to expand, or and sometimes they're good and they're definitely doable, but I have to keep reminding myself to stay focused on what's working before I jump to the next opportunity. I don't know if that's too general.
I'm running into that myself, having too many irons in the fire. Sometimes I have that problem myself, and it's better to just stay focused on a few things and spreading out too much.
And that's the last tip too: is run your business. Don't let it run you. And it's really easy to let that happen. So that's probably the thing that has caused my failures most often.
What about you, Thad? Any failures that stand out for you that you've learned from that helped you to become successful?
Well, I told you, I think earlier, Tom, is earlier in the week, is I still have a day job too. So I've experienced, rejection, with jobs, even within my current company. But one that I'm still working on right now, when it comes to maybe more so this topic of my book, is Costco. Costco has rejected me a few times to get the book in their stores, and even if it's just to get in their system so I can do a book signing, because most of us have been to Costco on a Saturday, and you see the enormous amounts of people that flow through there, and I've wanted to get in there at least for a book signing. I don't even care if the book is on their shelf or not, actually, and they don't want my book in their store right now. So I don't know. I think I don't really look at it as a failure. I just look at it as, well, I'm going to find a way, and maybe it'll take Melanie intervening somehow to make it happen. But that's one of my biggest challenges right now is continually marketing the book, and it's 3 years old now, and I think it's gotten some great, for being a first-time author and kind of not with a huge publisher. We've been very fortunate and got some great reviews on iTunes or on Amazon.
And you did reach number 1 in the Kindle bestselling list for a period.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's fantastic. So I think Dad's book is tremendous. His brother's story, he's exceptional. That's in the tagline. I don't think that you've told them, Thad, but your brother was a combat controller for the Air Force, which a lot of people probably don't even know what that is. But it's the special forces of the Air Force, and they're the guys that are out there standing up on the mountaintop for all to see, trying to coordinate the planes in the air to drop the bombs and the missiles where they're needed, and so they don't hit the friendlies. And it's a stressful job, and very few can do it. Thad, you could probably explain better about that, but it is really an incredible book.
Uh-huh.
And I can't say enough good about that book. My son read it. At 17, my son read it, and it was life-changing for him. So it really is a good book.
Yeah, we've just got a few minutes left, and we've got a caller on that I'd like to bring her on so she can ask either or both of you a question. I have Mary Ellen. Are you on the air?
I am. I was wondering what kind of stories garner the greatest interest in what you publish.
Well, true stories. Of course, my genre is true stories. But I think that truth can be far more fascinating than fiction. And when you have a story of overcoming something that's really sensational or very difficult, people are drawn to those stories. I think that we have an innate need to hear stories from people who've accomplished something that we need to accomplish or want to believe in. And so I think stories that are inspiring, people are just they're drawn to them, they need them, and they can do very well.
Okay, and do you find that, for example, a different story for each chapter is easier, so they're just short?
That's how my book series is, the Triumph book and the Triumph book Heroes. The Triumph book is 20 chapters, so it's 20 stories from people. The Heroes book has 27 chapters, so it's 27 stories from veterans. It's kind of like a Reader's Digest almost. One chapter and you've read a story. That's how my books are formatted. But others are just the telling of a story throughout the book. That's how Thad's is. Thad's story begins with, hearing of his brother's death and preparing for what was going to come, and takes you through that and then takes you through his life. So I like the way that that's organized. It's a little different than just chronologically organized. So if you're looking for an interesting way to tell a story, unless you're doing an anthology, which is what I write, collections of stories, I would always recommend finding unique ways of telling the story.
Like jump in the middle?
Jump in the middle. So, right in the middle of the excitement, and then go backwards and show how you got there, and then go forward to where you end up. That's always an interesting way to tell a story.
Great. Thank you very much. All right, bye.
All right. Anyway, get back into this. Dad, any more that you want to add? We're only down to about 4 minutes left, I believe, for the show. I want to give you a few final words before we close out the show.
Yeah, I would just like to kind of pick up where Melanie left off. I'm glad she said that about the book. I mean, Mark is a combat controller. Very few people, I think, know what these guys do or have even heard of them, and even think very few know the Air Force has guys like this, I believe. But so one good thing about the book is it introduces you to that world of the Air Force Special Operations field, and also the book does begin with the end, and I think we experience some very unique things. I mean, the notification process. How many people have the guys show up at their door? The military uniformed men or women show up at your door to notify you of the death of your loved one. And so at Mark's request, he had simultaneous notifications of my parents and also me. So the book talks about that and how we were notified and behind the scenes of how his team. These were people that notified us were teammates of Mark's. Commanders and trainers and leaders, and so it wasn't just some Air Force people from the local Air Force base in Montgomery. They came from North Carolina, and they had to stake out the houses and make sure we were home and time it just right to knock on the doors, and so it goes through all that process. The Angel Flight. I don't think many Americans know about this, about the transferring of the American hero's body from war to the U.S. of A. And for Mark, he went to Dover first, and then made his way to our hometown of Haleyville. And so all the support we got from the Patriot Guard Riders, which is another unique, incredible organization that if anyone doesn't know what they do, I encourage you to look them up, because those are some great Americans. And we just got some tremendous support from so many people that didn't know us and didn't know Mark, and then lots of support from those who did know us and knew Mark. So the book is a biography of his life, so you can see how he became the man he was, but also there's definitely a heavy military influence to it. And you're gonna see a lot of words from other people. You don't hear me in the book talk about my biggest. Really, I wanted to make sure I was accurate and I was factual, and I wasn't some mourning brother just trying to make my little brother sound like some superhuman. So I really, it took 3 years. It took 3 years to get this book published, and so I think it's definitely accurate and factual, and there's a lot of testimonies from other people of the type of man and warrior he was.
Well, anyway, we are just about the end of the show, about a minute left. I want to thank you guys. I think that's amazing that you're carrying on your brother's name in the way you are, and doing this in his honor. I think it's great that both of you are doing what you're doing for veterans and for publishers and getting, helping those people out. So I want to thank you guys for coming on. And we're going to start the second half of the show. We're going to talk about the violence in
Bankland, Federation of Bankland, the Republic of Bankland, United States of Bankland, United Kingdom of Bankland. Parasite, a smart parasite, a real smart parasite, keeps its host alive. Times are bad and times are hard, and minus cash, my way is barred and treated like some retard strapped to a suicide credit